Hello, and welcome to At Your End Step. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And we have another a fun-filled episode for you folks this week. Definitely less tension. Less, fighting and bickering and battling. Mainly because I can't win an argument to save my life. Couldn't argue myself out of a paper bag.
You won that
was
argument
wet.
about American Idol earlier.
I did win an argument about the irrelevancy of American Idol, which, to be
Talk
honest,
about some weird stuff.
to be honest, not really. We're not talking about like the Civil War or anything like that. It's as far as like as far as like monumental like
I get it.
battles.
Like, of a thing to pick, just like nope. Pretty happy with how that one like ended. I guess.
I mean,
what?
yeah, obviously, I think everyone is, but I'm just saying like. I'm not going to hang my hat on it.
No, I get where you're going. It's just like sometimes you pull something out of the dark and you go, nope, should have left that one. Just grab a different coat.
That's all right. Wars are all bad. I don't know what to tell you. I just wanted a monumental battle.
You are as effective at picking as some of our planeswalkers are.
Yeah, fair enough. There's a few odds and ends here to definitely talk about this week. Obviously, we got some more cards and more things to talk about in a couple tournaments. But before we start off with everything, I do want to give a shout out to, of course, our Patreon. We do have one. It's patreon.com/atyourendstep. And we would really appreciate it if you decide to visit that and become a patron of ours. All of our patrons are very much so appreciated. You help produce the show day in and day out and keep the lights on. So thank you so much for everyone who is a patron of the show. So I figured since we did get some more War of the Spark cards, that if there were any we kind of jumped out to us that we wanted to talk about, that we'd save some room here for it. I'm already super dreading the the Palooza, like very, very much so, because there are definitely a lot of cards that I have no idea if they'll make it or not, but they're compelling. Like they're interesting to talk about, which in a lot of our regular sets you don't necessarily have. But we're definitely getting a lot of cards that people have wanted for a long time, or just look pushed.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest.
I was thinking about that, and I thought we might have to break it into even like 3 this time.
Yeah, it's rough.
Like, and do like one smaller, only like planeswalkers only. Like, this is just for cool planeswalkers.
Yeah.
And then maybe after that, do other things.
And, like, to be honest, I'm not necessarily worried about, like, the amount of planeswalkers we have. Because,
Right.
like, you still have... It still feels like that'll be comparable with the amount of, like, playable rares that we get, right? But it's literally all the other cards that I'm looking at and being like, oh, well, that could be something. Or that could be something.
Right.
And it feels like this is going to be, like, one of the sets that really breaks the rule of, like, oh, a mythic is only something that's, like, big and splashy. And, like, no, there's going to be, like, a ton of playable mythics in this set. And it's going to be really real bad for your bank account. I'll tell you guys that up front.
That's actually probably the opposite of true.
Oh, because...
The more mythics that are playable, the lower price they remain.
Oh, because everyone buys boxes.
Right. Like, if you look at, like, was it Rivals of Ixalan? Like... It was Phoenix or bust, so Phoenix was able to maintain a close to $50 price tag at different points this season. But in sets where there's multiple mythics, it's harder to maintain that slot. So.
Or good rare lands.
Yeah, exactly. So, which that is something we don't have as of yet.
No, and I wouldn't expect it. We might have a fixing cycle in this set, but it's going to be like we
I think it's going to have some kind of fixing. We haven't seen it yet because we have a lot of gold.
Well, we have a lot of like color, off color,
right?
Like casting costs. I mean, the rares, but I mean, like they're still there and exist.
Yeah, and a lot of hybrid stuff too. So
yeah.
So I just want to pick and choose a couple. First one I want to talk about is Feather the Redeemed. So hey, Feather fans.
Yeah,
Feather's here.
She got her card.
She's her wings are unbound. She's flying through the air.
She's flying through the air,
and her card might be really good.
Yeah,
like just from a pure stat perspective, this is red, white, white for a legendary creature angel. That's a 3/4 flyer. A 3/4 flyer for 3 mana is
good,
really good.
Yeah.
But its ability is really intriguing. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature you control, exile that card instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So there's a sort of like a mini heroic sub theme in Boros in this set. We have an uncommon that literally would have heroic if it was on Theros.
It's a color shifted what not
it was
hoplite.
it was a blue white one before.
Yeah. Battlewise hoplite.
Battlewise hoplite. That's the one. Where if it's target, it's a counter, and you get to scry one.
Yeah.
So we also have a couple of interesting cards in this set already that could be targets that way. So I think like it's kind of interesting to see where this deck could build and what you could do with it.
And it feels like they're really trying to hammer that home because they reprinted Defiant Strike
Yeah.
in this set, and Defiant Strike was like that was the card for a lot of those like heroic decks. It just fed you and allowed you to keep kind of comboing off with your
100%.
creatures. Now you don't have, unfortunately, Dromoka's command, and that's a bummer. But today on Versus Live, Ross Miriam was playing a Boros sort of heroic deck, and he was playing Frenzied Rage, the deal 2 damage to target creature you control and 4 damage.
It's Reckless Rage.
Reckless Rage.
4 damage to another creature, 2 to your own. Right?
Which was like perfect because it all the creatures that he was playing in his particular list weren't going to die to that, and just allows you to play this like pretty powerful removal spell main deck.
Yeah, that's
in
pretty interesting.
in your aggressive deck.
And you get Boros Challenger, and you get the heroic guy, and you get Feather.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Yeah, that's interesting.
He wasn't even playing Challenger. I don't think he was playing the Arcanist. The
1/3 to get some of the other spells back.
Right.
Nice.
Yes. So Dreadhorde Arcanist. It's I don't know if we actually talked about it. It's a zombie wizard. It's a 1 and a red for 1/3 and has trample. And it says whenever this attacks, you may cast target instant sorcery card with converted mana cost less than or equal to Dreadhorde Arcanist's power from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. And if this card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So it's a attacking Snapcaster,
yeah,
that cares about its power.
Attack caster.
So I was also listening to Cedric Phillips. He was interviewing one of the SCG board leaders, one of the players. It's the gentleman who's over here from England, kind of grind the circuit and trying to queue for the Players Championship. And he was talking about how he was interested in that card for something like Death Shadow Zoo, because you can become immense this card and attack with it and then become immense it again. Which is that's beautiful. That's energy right there.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
And so you can this card has been getting a lot of hype. It's obviously a 1/3 that you have to like attack with, which kind of limits its power, but and even on the Versus Live today, like both like Todd Anderson thought this card was like going to change the way that Legacy is played, which is a very bold statement. You know, that is aggrandizing at its probably its greatest. But I don't know. This card's interesting. And like I said, it works well with things in Standard. It works well with things in Modern, and it does work well with things in Legacy. So who knows?
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, but sweet for Feather. What you got, Morgan?
I was going to talk about that Borgod that we got.
Oh, Pigman?
Yeah, the big Pigman. It is Ilharg. Yeah, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Ilharg, the Raze Boar. So this is a 3 generic red for a legendary creature, Borgod. It has trample, and it's a 6/6. And it says, whenever this card attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Return that creature card to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. And it says, when this creature dies or is exiled or put to your exile from the battlefield, you may put it 3rd from the top instead. So there are gods in this set.
So the other 4 are the Eternals, the Eternal gods, the other Amonkhet gods who have been eternalized. We saw Bantu today,
and Ronus today.
Yeah, no Hazaret. Remember, Hazaret still alive,
missing an arm, but still none the worse. Except being completely decimated and you saving a small amount of humans into an oasis.
It's all right. She'll get it back. She'll grow her arm back.
I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't know if gods can grow arms back.
Yeah, I don't know if she. In Dragon Ball Z, Kami is a god who is a Namekian.
Yeah,
grows his arm back.
Fair enough. So if we're playing by those rules, I just assume it turns into a giant flamethrower.
Hey, Hazard, what you doing? Lighting things on fire. So. I think for fans of this card that has been referenced
Yeah, this
for
is
so long.
this was something that was alluded to when we returned to Ravnica initially, back in 13, 14, somewhere around there. I forget. Where some of the Gruul believe in the old gods or the ancient gods, and one of them is the Raze, and who is the marker of the beginning of the apocalypse. That's what it's supposed to be. And yeah,
there he is.
this is a pretty good time for him to show up. And obviously the pseudo sneak attack effect that he kind of has here is potentially pretty powerful. Again, I'm gonna, take a look at Arcanus and kind of refer to the same thing as like, oh well, this is something you do have to attack with. But I do appreciate how it works really well with the Ravager Worm. Like, if there's something I want to like sneak attack with, it's definitely Ravager Worm.
So one thing about the people naysaying this because of you has to attack, there are a number of ways in red green to give a creature haste. With Rhythm of the Wild and Domri. Also, this works really well with the Forerunners. The End Raze Forerunners, which are the foretelling of this. But I've seen some really wacky ones, including in probably Commander, but this and Metamai the Ageless.
Oh yeah, that's infinite turns, right?
Yeah, so like if Metamai hits, you can take another turn, and it can't attack on extra turns. It never attacks. It enters the battlefield tapped attacking.
Correct.
So it's like, hurry up, Metamai. Like, I don't know what this pig's doing, but I like it. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know if it's constructed playable, but I just like it because
I want it to be.
It's just a good like culmination of like this card. My only disappointment is that it's not Gruul. Actually, it's mono red, but they kind of have to do it to complete like this god cycle that they have.
In standard, you can bring Palaka worms off of this, right?
Yeah,
hit him for 7, gain 7 life, and then Palaka's come back to my hand. It's like
I get to do this all over again.
Oh man, yeah, so it's sweet.
Can you just do it? Okay, so can you do this? The two gods played nice with each other. Can you do this with Ronus?
Yeah, Ronus is insane.
So let's read Ronus real quick.
Go for it.
And then we'll do one more after this.
I want to do one more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So God Eternal Ronus is 3 generic green for a legendary creature, zombie god. Has Death Touch. It says when God Eternal Ronus enters the battlefield, double the power of each other creature you control until end of turn. These creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. Kind of a nombo, but whatever. And then it has the same god clause. If it dies or is exiled from the battlefield, put a third from the top. Doubles the power is it feels like a substantial line of text.
Yes, it does. We have a little thing called Galta in standard.
Yeah.
A fair amount of play. What you know about 24s?
With that trample.
With trample.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, that's
I mean, this is still imposing with something like a Carnage Tyrant.
Yeah,
right?
100%. I mean, even with just like Gruul Spellbreaker, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just like, hey, here's 8 power that you can't interact with right now. So yeah, this is I think it's a sweet finisher, and I hope it sees some play for sure. The power level's there,
especially if you feel like you're just already playing like mono green, or people have been experimenting with like green blue beats just to play the flash counter spell.
Frilled Mystic.
Yeah, Frilled Mystic. So it's like if you're already experimenting in that space, like this effect is fairly potent, and sometimes just a big Death Toucher is really nice too. Like it's something that they're gonna have to. Feels like they have to block either way, and like you're always going to get your guy for the most part, unless you're like unless you can give something indestructible like your the vampire, the 1/1 that text is a 3/1.
Oh, Dante's Vanguard.
Yeah, Vanguard. Yeah. But if they're blocking with a Vanguard, you're already pretty far ahead.
You're fine.
And then you have the last card.
Yeah. Oops, sorry about that. I want to talk about Domri, Anarch of Bolas. I know now. Granted, I've been playing the Domri,
4-mana Domri,
the 4-mana Domri in Standard on Arena for a while, and I really like the card. But I know that Morgan, you expressed some sadness over.
I just wanted to be like the old card.
Well,
they did it.
Cures of aliens. This is a 1 generic red green for a legendary Planeswalker Domri. Comes with 3 loyalty, static ability. Creatures you control get +1/+0. All right, I'm in.
Yeah,
like this.
that's great.
+1, add a red or green mana to your mana pool. Creature spells you cast this turn can't be countered. Nice,
strong.
-2 target creature you control fights another. Fights target creature you don't control. So this feels a lot like the other Domri.
Yeah,
and man, that static ability seems crazy.
Yeah, and like when you consider something like Gruul Spellbreaker, like this card plays wonderfully
Oh
in my
my
opinion with
gosh.
Gruul Spellbreaker. So
I wish it was Ghoul Spellbreaker. Where are them
so
ghosts?
so obviously if you already have this out, it's +1 allows you to cast it and it resolve, which is perfect because obviously your opponent's not going to be able to mess with it on your turn, and then like being able to like minus it and it probably be bigger than most anything else on the battlefield, and it not get blown out by a removal spell is great. And like it's probably going to be 5 mana, like 5 power, I should say. Like that's going to take out a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I like how well this plays against multiple archetypes too, because the +1 is super relevant against the absorb decks, which is where you really want that clause, where people have wanted like Rhythm of the Wild in the format. But that minus, like having some game against the other mid range decks, is pretty sweet. And I think is where the current Domri sort of falls flat, even when I played against it. So, and man, this card comes out on turn 2 in Standard. Like this card, Land of Werewolves into this card is obscene, and that is where I'm starting in Standard. Is like I saw this and I was like, we ride again, Land of Werewolves.
Yeah, like that it's something that you like people are trying to figure out like what's your what's your three like. And there's some. What about this guy? Like, you're probably playing too many threes at this point in time, but I want to play Legion Warboss with this guy too, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
There's a lot of things. I don't know if you can make 3-drop dot deck work, but there's some other cards you could obviously play.
I mean, the Gruul Warrior decks are already the place to look here.
Yeah.
You will have to, if you want to play Land of Elves, which some of those builds already do, you have to shift away from unclaimed territory, which means essentially means you're losing Goblin Chain Whirler, which is a legitimate issue with mono white being as good as it is in the format. But when you get to shift to this, and like your 1-drops are Land of Elf or Pelt Collector, and your 2-drops are the guy that goes and finds more copies of itself. And just like
Gross Reaver Guardian.
Thank you. And like maybe like Cruel Harpooner is the one that's been is solid in the format. And then your 3-drops are a Legion Warboss. It's definitely Gruul Spellbreaker into is it Rekindling Phoenix? Is it Neheb at this point? Like we still got that dragon hanging around. Like man,
it's just a ton of stuff.
I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
So
I think War of the Spark is definitely shaping up to be, like we said initially, a little bit pushed.
And I think the thing that makes me excited about that is like Domri, like it's the kind of planeswalker you're gonna want more than one copy of. It's not a single thing. It's a rare,
right?
So it makes it feel at least a little bit more attainable.
Yeah, definitely.
So
awesome. So moving on from that, the next thing that we have on our list is in-store MCQs. So this was something that people have been waiting on, and this was for Mythic Championship Barcelona. But it's awesome that they have an entire list out, so you can go check it out. It's going to be anyone is eligible to participate, and it is going to be standard. And everything for like what you would expect from a PTQ is going to be the same thing for an MCQ. Deck lists, competitive REL, things like that. But the awesome thing is for this, there's going to be a promo, and it's going to be Arcbound Ravager. That's a pretty hefty promo. I understand there's some disagreements on the quality of the art.
I would say quality. It's
good art.
I've never once pictured Arcbound Ravager as a good boy. I don't know,
like a nice little doggo.
What? I don't get it.
And so yeah, you can actually they have a website you can visit. You can type in where you live and see if there's one close to you. I know that in Ohio there are 3. 2 of them are both on June 1st. One is in Akron and one's in Cincinnati. And then there's going to be one on the 15th of June, and it's going to be at Comic Town. So our lovely sponsor. So definitely we'll try to make it out to that one. I do have to figure out what is going to be good in Standard by June 15th.
You and the rest of the world.
Correct. So. And judging from how good all of these cards are in War of the Spark, it's going to be something vastly different than what I have access to currently.
I do want to say 2 things about that. One, most of the MCQs have a cap, like a player cap.
Correct.
Like Comic Town's is 200. So if you are planning on going to those, be on the lookout for pre-registration information no matter where you're going. And 2, something to remember, while it's exciting that these are back, winning one of these does not get you a plane ticket anymore.
Correct.
And for Barcelona, I know that my ticket to Spain that they did pay for was like $1,800. Yeah, so now, granted, they've mitigated some of that because when I went and played at the Pro Tour, and I didn't make day 2, I got a sweet bag and a handshake. But last place still gets $500 essentially at the pro. So they've mitigated that cost a little bit. But just be aware, like you win one of those, you are buying a ticket to Spain. You're not getting one.
Correct.
So,
but yeah, that's exciting. I know people have been waiting to see like what this new quote unquote new system is going to look like. And initially, right now, does look like a just what a PTQ, a proper PTQ would kind of look like. I assume in the next when they start limiting the ways that you can attend, it'll probably be maybe slightly different. But I'm glad that you get a promo with it. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. That is a nice bone to throw out to players.
Next up, continuing on the Mythic Championship lane, we do have MC London news.
MC London.
So the first thing I want to talk about was deck lists. So for Mythic Championship London, deck lists are going to be publicly available. And you will actually, and I don't know if it's limited or only constructed only or limited and constructed. I was trying to find the article or the news brief about it, and I couldn't find it. But you will basically have a copy of your deck list that you, I believe, are carrying around with you, and that you will hand over to your opponent at the beginning of the round. And they'll be able to see what you're playing. They won't have exact numbers at the very least. They won't have exact numbers of sideboard cards.
Is that true? Is that I didn't read it that way. Am I crazy?
That's what it was as. When people were talking about it, that's what they were discussing, because then the meta game you play in that moment is how many sideboard cards do you play, and how many like how many of each. Because if you don't have if they don't have the numbers of what what you're playing in your sideboard, like what's the where do you land? So it's just like minor stuff like that.
Okay, so sorry, we only list the names of cards. Okay, fair enough.
Yes,
fair enough.
So, but I assume this is to obviously help people that are, if you're on a large team, you're getting scouted anyway. So people are trying to figure out what your team's on and what your team's playing. So that at that point in time, you're probably at a fairly, it's an unfair advantage. You do have the advantage of testing with probably the best Magic players in the world, but this kind of levels the playing field in that, in this scouting aspect of it. And that's likely their main and probably own motivation. The nice thing is this does give different archetypes in the format a little bit of a leg up. So if you're playing something like Control, well, guess what? You know what you're going to be playing against, so that can influence what kind of starting hand you are trying to keep. So I don't know if that's an actively thing they're considering, or just a happy sort of side effect of this change. But I imagine that the main motivation is we know that people have active scouting sort of circles that go around. We are trying to just cut that out and be like, hey, listen, all the information is now on the table, as much as you theoretically you would get from even proper scouting. But yeah, so that is that. The other thing is that the London Mulligan testing is live on Magic Online. So any match that you play in a queue of is going to be the London Mulligan rule. I don't know. I think it's everything. Like everything you play.
I believe it is everything as well, though.
So
the rollout was funny.
the rollout was a little rough, as some people may have expected and not been surprised about. But it is interesting to see people try to break the format. Cheerios has become a deck that everyone is trying to play. Which, if you don't know what that deck is, the deck relies on Pierced Up Paladin and Saram Senior Artificer,
right, and
a bunch of zero cost equipments. So your Quarter Shields, your Sigil of Distinctions, your Paradise Mantle. And the idea of the deck is to play a bunch of zero cost artifacts with, either Saram or Pierce still out, draw a bunch of cards, and then kill your opponent with Grape Shot. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I believe so.
I don't know if there's any other win conditions. I was trying to see, I tried to think about it. I was explaining it to someone at work today about what the deck did. And I was like, I don't know if they do anything else. I don't know if they cast a big creature or not. I can't remember. I don't know if they cast Emrakul. I can't remember if they do that. I think it's just Grape Shot is pretty much their main win condition. But yeah, it's a deck that is notably like can win on turn 2, but it probably mulligans really badly. But if you give to mulligan to 7 every time and then like keep your Saram 2 lands and then a couple, you know, a couple of Cheerios,
Right.
for lack of a better term, then you're probably like good. Like you're probably gonna get like a draw, and then hopefully you just like keep the train a rolling when you're starting to go off.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like that's interesting. Like that whole draw still like just gets destroyed by a bolt. So like I'm not super worried about that. But I know
No.
people are trying. I posted that list in our Discord of Peter Glugowski, who was trying to, as he put it, create the stress test,
Yes, correct.
which featured all 4 copies of Serum Powder, 4 copies of Simian Spirit Guide, 4 copies of Sphinx of Foresight,
Yeah.
and it's a Goryo's Vengeance deck featuring Narset Enlightened Master to try and just cast a bunch of free spells and do it on turn 1 as consistently as possible. It's also playing a weird card from I don't know if it's Future Sight or just Time Spiral. It's Pull from Eternity, which is take a card you own in exile and put it into your graveyard. So you can go through these hands with Serum Powder, and like between the amount of hands you can mulligan with Serum Powder and then the 7 mana hands you can mulligan 2, the deck really tries to piece together a turn 1 Narset and see what it can do. No idea if the deck is like really playable or not, but like I like the idea that it's like you want to see what this can do. Let's test it. Like let's really do it. So it's interesting.
And that's what people should be doing. People should be trying to like bust the format and really approve if this is something that is going to be viable or not. Because I mean, if it's not, then we shouldn't be trying to instate it and have it be the thing that people are just gonna have to live with in Modern and Legacy and Vintage, but be okay with it in Standard and Limited.
Right.
Because again, I know that this is probably going to be a great change for Standard and Limited. It'll really help negate the number of non-games that people are going to be having. And we'll just have to wait and see what the Mythic Championship London holds for us in regards to how this looks in Modern. But I'm excited. I'm excited to watch that tournament. I want to see dumb stuff happen.
Yeah, I am too. I know a lot of the pros were kind of upset about the announcement about decks being public, but the argument that that this Cardboard Live extension is one of the reasons for it.
Yes,
makes
that is true.
Makes a ton of sense
That
to
is
me.
true.
Like I mentioned when I was watching the Mythic Invitational, how much I love the Cardboard Live extension. Which, if you didn't see that when you're streaming, you just click on it; it shows you the deck list.
Correct.
So if that was literally their only argument for doing this, I think as a viewer I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Like I just am. Like I love the fact that if I'm a viewer, I can come in, I can see what they're playing, and then I can click on the deck list. And doing it that way gets us one step closer to the edge, and I'm about to break. No, but it gets us. I couldn't help myself. I'm really sorry. One step closer to like feature matches being on Arena. Obviously not Modern feature matches, but. I think that's interesting. So, I like it though. Yeah. The next thing we have is something called the Mythic Convention Series.
Correct. The Mythic Convention Series. So, Pastimes, in partnership with the Magic the Gathering, is going to be holding 2 Mythic Convention Series tournaments. The first one being at Origins Game Fair here in Columbus, Ohio, and the other one being in Gen Con in Indianapolis, Indiana. And these are qualifier tournaments. Basically, they will queue you for an invite to the Mythic Championship, which is awesome. And they have tournaments leading up to it that will feed you into this tournament. At the Origins tournament, it'll be a bunch of different qualifiers. And the actual proper tournament on Sunday will be War the Spark Sealed, and the top 8 of that draft. Top 8 will be draft of Modern Horizons draft. So that's pretty exciting. Modern Horizons being pretty relatively new at that point in time for this, because this will be in June.
Right.
So that's really, really, really exciting. That's going to be an awesome tournament. And a really fun way, if you're already going to these and playing Magic, that you're going to be able to qualify. The one for Gen Con, though, is real interesting, real spicy. So similar way, to qualify for it for Sunday. So you'll have multiple different pathways to do so. Most of them being either Core Set 2020, which will be out at that point in time, Modern or Standard. And then there's also actually one for Modern Horizons sealed, which will be pretty cool to potentially participate in.
Pretty sweet.
So if you queue for it, the tournament will be held on Sunday. And does this just queue you for the top 8?
It does. It queues you for the top. Yeah.
So it's not an actual tournament. The other one at Origins is a tournament.
Right. The Sunday is a tournament. This one is just a top 8.
In the top 8 is a Legacy Cube draft where players keep all cards that are drafted.
Yeah, that's real hot.
Now, I don't know if they're going to go by what we currently have going on with Legacy Cube, if the list is going to change from then to now, like what this is going to look like, obviously, by the time this happens, which is going to be the beginning of August. But, man, that is... Wow,
that's real sweet.
And, I mean, obviously, they had, the 20th... The anniversary events that they had last year, the 25th anniversary events, where they got to, draft... what was it? Beta?
Beta.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, beta. It was beta.
And so it's interesting to see them kind of still do these cool events that have, obviously a monetary value baked into the draft, but are still queuing you for a Mythic Invitational. And you get a box of sealed English Legends if you win this.
Yeah, that's insane.
Which is a lot of money.
Yeah, it really is.
But man, that would be something to top 8 the Legacy Cube draft and just
Do I draft? So do I draft mono red so I can win?
Right. Yeah. Do I do this?
Because Sulfuric Vortex is $1, but no one's gonna beat it.
But
so.
Exactly. I don't care. The most expensive card I'm gonna draft today is Goblin Guide.
That's the best. The sweating button meme, right? Where it's just it's like Shrine of Burning Rage,
hey.
Underground Sea.
But upside. You could draft the fetch lands. You draft the red fetch lands, right?
That's true.
There you go. That's how you take your Scalding Tarns, your Arid Mesas.
That's pretty sweet. So the one for Origins is the same weekend as Comic Town's MCQ.
Yeah.
So the goal is to go Thursday or Friday, get your spot for Sunday, go to the MCQ on Saturday, and then if you don't win that, you just go back Sunday.
Yeah, correct.
So.
But these are really cool. Like I said, they are just pure upside to people that are going to be going to these tournaments, going to these conventions anyway, that are probably going to be playing a lot of Magic. I know Mike and I have gone to Gen Con on multiple different occasions.
Multiple different continents.
And that's pretty much all that we do for a large majority of the time that we're at there is, doing drafts or doing actual, tournaments and stuff like that. So it's not something that this is something that last year, the 25th anniversary draft was the thing to chase. So this is going to be the other thing. This is going to be a thing to chase, which is going to be nice.
And hopefully, no more cupcakes.
Yeah, but please, no more cupcakes. All right. So, anything else to talk about community-wise before we shift into competitive?
No, I think we're doing that competitive.
All right. Well, before we do that, I do want to give a quick shout out to Comic Town. They are still going to be having that IQ on 420. Blaze it. It's going to be a standard IQ. So get your standard decks ready to wave goodbye to them, as they will be changing once War of the Spark obviously comes out. So this could be your last hurrah with some of them. So.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know this, but if a character dies in War of the Spark,
the card's banned immediately.
You are not allowed to play with it in Standard.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. So
yeah.
You better, look. what? If you're playing Jaya Ballard, then Yeah, she might not make it. Just saying.
No one's playing Jaya Ballard. So
they could just ban it and be like, all right.
I'm actually trying to think who. And Teferi didn't die.
Yeah, it's very dying. Well, you know what? We don't know. Obviously, he could.
Yeah.
He
can make himself not be born.
Apparently, he has that power. Why we're even in this
that
mess?
Doesn't even make sense because he's real old.
Absolutely, does not make any sense at all whatsoever. Don't know how he can unborn people. Don't know if he can do that. Why are we even in this mess?
I like how he's like, I'm gonna do that to Nicol Bolas, and Ugin's like, hey, could you not?
I need to be born.
I really like existing. Can we find a way to kill my brother without me also being unborn?
Not to be
that
selfish.
guy, that dragon, but
no, I don't. Could we please?
Plus, like, it was weird being the same egg. I don't even know why it happened. Like, somebody talked to the Ore Dragon. I don't know, but
I wasn't a fan.
that's one of the characters we haven't got yet, by the way. So I'm interested to see what that
Yeah, me
looks like.
too. Like, being another, like, I think we know it's a rare because
Yes.
both the colorless planeswalkers are rare,
Right.
per Morrow. I'm interested to see what it does because we've obviously only seen one Ugin, so I don't. And it's absurdly powerful at 8 mana, so I don't really know what.
Ugin Ugin who wants to be born.
But a lot of people are speculating based on. So we have the like stained glass art,
Right.
and the stained glass art has horns in the background of it pretty clearly. And Rosewater on his blog said that we are going to be seeing another plane in this set that wasn't Ravnica and not Amonkhet.
So the meditation realm.
That's what people are thinking. That
Ooh.
the way and why we haven't seen Ugin yet is because he is going to be at the tail end and he is going to be in the meditation plane, and that has something to do with how they defeat Bolas.
Sick. All right,
So.
I'm in.
Yeah, and like that could be pretty interesting. But I'm a big Ugin fan. I like Ugin. I think he's.
Ugin's a jerk, man.
I'm not saying like I don't necessarily like who he is as a dragon. All right, I like the character design at the very least. But yeah, I agree.
Oh no, for sure. Like he is who he is, and they tried to like characterize it, like flesh him out more with the core set stuff, which was cool. I like that. But here's what we have storylines for Ugin. He's like, "Hey, Nahiri, we're gonna lock these on your plane.
You cool with that?
Peace." and then, hey, Jace is like, "Hey, we're gonna fight Nicol Bolas." He's like, "Hey, don't do that. Oh, while you're here, you got something in your brain. Oh, it's a trap I put there." Like, what the heck, man? Oh, and hey, hey, Azor, I'm just gonna need that. Oh, crunch. Oh, I need that spark, man. I just need it. So, yeah, he's just kind of a jerk at everything he does.
Yeah.
So
He is like the stereotypical like I have this grand plan to fix things and I don't care like what happens to the other people.
So you're saying he's actually a tiny dragon in a large dragon suit and he's the Wizard of Dragons?
Yes, correct.
Do not look into the chest cavity
of this dragon, of this spirit, this translucent spirit dragon.
Sarkhan's the one who knows, and he's just like, guys, I gotta tell you something.
Yeah, like Sarkhan's another one that we're getting a Planeswalker card for Sarkhan we haven't seen.
Yeah, that's
yet.
true. I have to assume he's an uncommon at this point.
Really? Is that true?
We have we should, and I guess, are we still in the middle of our? Are we going to competitive?
Go to Comic Town. They're great.
Are we still in the ad break here? I don't even remember.
Technically, yes, but go to Comic Town.
Oh my god. Yeah, Comic Town is awesome. Thanks, I appreciate it. But I think it's, if you looked at the story breakdown, they've done it in acts and days.
Yes.
So you can follow along, and that's that's when we talked before about this rollout of like how things are going to look. It's been cool to see, like the Nissa we got came from Nissa cosplay, which was really cool. And then so I assume that we're going to get Sarkhan and Narset at like the same time.
Yes, that would make sense. Yes.
So I don't know. Because like we seem to get like groupings like that. You know what I mean? We got Soren and Nahiri on the same day. We're and if we got Tamio, Narset's part of the story circle, right? So like, I'm assuming either tomorrow we get Sarkhan and Narset or early next week. So, do we get the whole set by next Friday?
I have no idea.
Because that's what the 8th. No?
We would get it
the 18th or 19th.
We would get it before the Mythic Championship, obviously.
Which is the last weekend of the month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming we'd get it next week. So that'd be interesting.
I was trying to see because the pairings are, I forget the actual numbers, because like you can sort of figure out like what colors are still need to be represented. We're obviously getting another colorless one in Ugin.
Right.
I forget because he had an entire breakdown. It's not really that important, but yeah, I'm interested. I think one of them is probably going to be uncommon.
Yeah, that one would have to be.
We could, if we tried hard enough, we could deduce it from what's list, but I'm not going to say it this time.
Yeah,
Let's
it is
go.
Interesting who we haven't gotten yet.
Yes.
So. Thanks, Comic Town. All right.
Yeah. So competitive. So we had Star City Games Cleveland over the weekend, which neither Mike or I attended, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's really awkward. It really is.
It's
but
just. Yeah,
for me, like with work, that's just the nature of this time of year. Like I just don't have weekends free, which stinks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and this was the last Star City Games event for like the next 3 weeks. They've taken a 3-week hiatus, and So it was kind of interesting to see. And like, obviously, this is the biggest tournament we're going to have featuring Modern until the Mythic Championship. So we kind of get an idea of what's really popular. So let's take a look here at the Modern Open deck lists. I think I linked the wrong thing. I think this is the Classic. So excuse me.
Wow, way to go!
I know, such an amateur move. I made the show notes today, so of course they're messed up.
It's all right. It's my fault.
So the Open was won by Sam Lawrence, playing Amulet Titan, defeating Zach Allen with Esper Control. So Esper Control was kind of like the exciting new list to kind of come out of this weekend, and people were really excited to see a new take on Control, and seeing, especially anytime you mention like Esper, like people really enjoy that shard and really enjoy trying to make it work, and having a Control deck work and be successful over the weekend was drawed a lot of people in. And his list, like initially when like the commentators looking at it were like, oh well, he's just touching black for a little bit of this and that, but they were like, oh no, he actually like he has all this stuff here, and I think it's really cool. I'm hesitant to let Jordan know that this exists because I feel like he might just like buy it all and make his wife really angry.
Tell him. They already got the house. Just tell him.
Just tell him. But realistically, like you can't even say that this is a blue-white deck splashing black. Like this is a really kind of a divergent list from the typical Control list that we've been seeing, because Jeskai has fallen off the map. Most time if you're playing Control, you're going to be playing blue-white, and playing things like just so you can not have to play a third color and go real deep on playing like non-basic lands like Field of Ruin, or shifting your potent sideboard cards into your main deck and being able to manipulate your deck with things like Jace and stuff like that. So to really see kind of where he chooses to strengthen his deck by using the black cards, we're able to see like he's playing 3 main deck Nile Spellbombs, and just having those there as cyclers is perfectly fine in a lot of different matchups. There's certain times where it's just like you're pretty disadvantaged to like have them potentially, or have them like clump up in your hand. But they always, for the most part, will draw you a card. We see Cast Down, and that seems to be the Doomblade du jour in Modern. There's not a whole lot of...
You got to hit artifacts now, so you can't just...
Yeah.
For a while there, you could get away with playing,
Go for the throat.
Go for the throat versus... But this is better.
For sure. And, you don't have a whole lot of legendary creatures that are running around. You do see the Thalia, like Guardian of Thraben.
Or the Kalitas he has in his sideboard.
Yeah, and you kind of grimace a little bit, but I mean, like, Thalia, like, you see that, you look at that cast and you'd be like, well, dang. But obviously, he's making up for that with Fatal Push.
Right.
So he's still covering his bases, even against a Kalitas, which is nice. Next up, we have Esper Charm, and this card was doing some work for him over the weekend, and it's wonderful because like Cedric Phillip was commenting on these matchups, and he has a very infamous story involving Esper Charm.
Yes,
so if you don't know about it, I would suggest seeing if you could like find some information on it. And so it was hilarious to be like, oh yep, he's casting Esper Charm, and I assume that he's doing this because Esper Charm only has one targeted ability. So just some good digs, and and that's really the about it for the spells suite. We do have a Kaya, Orzhov Usurper making it to the main deck, as well as being another card that asks for black, and I think that's fairly effective at a lot of different things inside of Modern. There's a lot of effective 1-0 CMC things like, I don't know, Chalice of the Void,
Death Shadow,
Death Shadow, and being able to exile Phoenixes or what have you from a graveyard, or like tactically shrink a Tarmogoyf or something like that is fairly effective. And then another card that a lot of people kind of forget existing as a manland is Creeping Tar Pit, and how sometimes it just kills you. But that's about the most exciting land that we really see being played, as opposed to, Watery Graves and what have you. In the sideboard, we have some exciting ones. We have Kalitas, that we already mentioned, as well as Collective Brutality. we have Unmoored Ego.
Yeah, that's gaining some popularity as a
Yeah.
good answer to like Phoenix.
Yeah.
So you don't have to rely so heavily on like surgical at whatever time and the life payment for that. But also there's just a lot of decks where you can be super proactive with that card. And for a while, even in standard, in some modern decks, we saw Slaughter games even seeing some kind of
Yeah.
play. And like it makes a lot of sense here. Like just looking at the deck and saying like look at Amulet Titan and be like no Titans. You know what I mean? It's pretty good.
And it was wild because if you like look at some of the Amulet Titans lists for this weekend, people were playing Hive Mind,
right?
To like not be all in on Titan, and it's so wild. Like there's a match that if you can go back and watch it, I don't know if it's the finals or if he was playing against one of the other Amulet Titan players, or whether it was him playing against Matthew Dilks, but like he casts an Unmoored Ego. It's his second ego of the game because his first one got countered, and he's trying to figure out what to name, whether it's when the commenters are trying to see if he's going to name, do you name Titan or do you name Hive Mind?
Right.
And he names Titan Pact or not
Summoner's Pact.
Summoner's Pact, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of like a split the difference between the two. So it's kind of interesting to see, like, even when you have this card, you think you have like a slam dunk thing to name with it. It's just even that is not as clear cut as it seems. But
that's true.
I definitely like this against certain matchups and certain sort of linear strategies. If you can like negate an entire threat, from a deck like a Is It Phoenix deck, then you are going a long way to stitching up that matchup, because now you're freeing up all of your removal to deal with the Crackling Drakes, the things in the ice, and everything like that, and you're really neutering what the power that deck can generate. So I definitely like that.
Yeah, I agree. Elsewhere in the top, so we do have 2 copies of the aforementioned Amulet Titan.
Yep.
Both these are free. This is sort of the new build with Hive Minds and
and
Coalition Relics.
And looking at Matthew Dilks is part of the Star City Games, like Amulet Titan Cabal. Like they're changing their lists on a weekly basis. They're playing Hive Minds this week. They're playing some of them were playing Serum Visions this week, and it's just they're switching things around because they know that they definitely have to keep the deck a little bit different every single week, because they don't have the benefit of being like, oh, you don't know what I'm playing. Like
right,
people are going to figure it out, so they or at the very least, the people they're going to be fighting, in the top ranks, they're going to know what they're going to be on. But
right.
if they're going to put you on like, oh no, Hive Mind, and then suddenly you just Hive Mind them out of the game, like you're going to have a huge advantage going on in your favor. But these lists, people are starting to talk and see if this is going to have a similar effect that we had with KCI. If this is a deck that has a high skill ceiling, but is still successful, if it continues to be successful long enough for it to, people just to be like, well, this is clearly just the best thing to be doing. I need to learn this deck. I do have to say, like, we don't see the same supremacy with it, with something like Amulet Titan, that you don't see very many trophy wins necessarily. But I think that a lot of the times when you saw KCI winning in the hands of Matt Nass, he wasn't playing in the Star City Game circuit. Obviously, he's playing in GPs. So it's definitely a deck to keep your eye on that always exists. It did win this weekend. Important to note, and it's another deck that has this fancy card called Ancient Stirrings in it that does not enable it to do fair things. I mean, Amulet of Vigor doesn't enable it to do fair things, pretty much. So
if you don't, you don't have to ban it, you could just unban.
I don't know. We get it.
Twin, and have another deck to fight against it.
We're gonna be the unban the Splinter Twin Brigade. I see.
I'm large enough to be a one-man brigade.
Listen, I found all my Splinter Twins and pulled them out. Like I know where they are, so just in case, you gotta have that backup.
I keep them out. I smooch them at night. Just like
just spread them out.
Good night, babies.
One day.
I'm just. You said it to me before, but I'm definitely just that Wolverine meme. Just like
yep, that's what you are.
Let's talk about quickly. Is it Phoenix?
Yeah.
These lists are becoming more and more like. Yes, we've settled on it. We talked before about Pyromancer's Ascension being sort of the this is the go-to card here. The one Snapcaster Mage, which I know you've played a fair amount of, is becoming sort of the norm.
Yeah.
One card I do want to make mention that's starting to see some play in these decks is Set Adrift. Normally 1 to 2 copies.
Yeah, Cedric's so cool.
So when Dave was like working on the deck and I was working on Mono Red, we spent a fair amount of time brainstorming like, what's the card that you really want to bring in for, especially for Thing in the Ice Mirrors that isn't just dead to other things. Those sideboard slots are so important. And I know that's at one point he was trying out, what's the blue enchantment that takes a creature CMC 2 or less?
Oh, Threads of Disloyalty.
Yeah, Threads we talked about. Obviously, Rending Volley got popular. We talked about that. But I was trying to think like, okay, well, how about the exile spell that lets you manifest? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what about Pongify? Like what can we do here that and Set Adrift is one that we didn't set on, and it makes a ton of sense though. When you think about what Rug used to look like in Legacy, right? When you had, man, I'm really bad with card names today, but you had the blue instant where if an opponent controlled a forest, you have to pay Submerge, thank you. And how those sort of like were a big deal in the Tarmogoyf mirrors. When somebody cracked their fetch, like you're submerging their Goyf and getting out of here.
Yeah.
So like Set Adrift being this card that won, like you don't outside of Phoenix itself, like your graveyard doesn't matter. The Crackling Drake sees your exiled cards anyway, so the first couple of delve spells are pretty free. You know what I mean? Which just terrifies me because could you imagine if this deck had Treasure Cruise? Ha ha ha. Anyways, though. Cruising, yeah. But with the Snapcaster, you know what I mean? You effectively get that second copy of it, and like you get to see these a fair amount. So I've liked seeing it either, taking the slot of like normally like a Lightning Axe or something else.
Yeah.
But it's
or even like the Is It Charm slot or something like that.
100%. And I just like, the fact that it deals with so many cards in just a very unique way, because it's not land permanent.
Yeah.
So like, there's a bunch of things it can do and a bunch of board states it can get you out of as a unique blue card that nothing else that deck was playing so far could do. And I love it. I think it is a beautiful, it was a it's just a one card. I mean, like as an innovation, it's the right kind of innovation.
100%. And it's one of those things that's like, you don't think about it because it's never been like a relevant thing. It's never been like something that you would even care about. It's like a limited playable uncommon,
100%.
and
it tells you what delve spells are like just like Phyrexian Mana, you've got to look at all of them.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's the thing that is a friendly reminder to people who are really trying to get to that next level and look at stuff that has traditionally been broken. Yeah. Look at stuff that is busted in other ways, We know that Delve is busted because of Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time. So what other cards are just laying there underneath the surface that have Delve on them or are free? Like these things are time and time again. People figure out how to break them or take use of them in a way that you don't get to do in like standard.
Right.
And it's important to like just be like reminded of that and really shows you how you can push yourself to that next level when you're trying to get an advantage over your competition.
Yeah, so and this has been pretty quickly adopted by most of the decks. If you look on the Classic, those decks are running it too. But I think it's just like it's just a cool like little bit of innovation as you see people take, as you said, taking these decks to just the next level, whatever that next level is.
Yeah.
So, and we do have 2 copies of Is It Phoenix in the top 8. So what with James is it Manges?
Sure.
Okay, and
Drake Sasser.
Now, Drake Sasser is not playing that. He's playing one copy of Echoing Truth in the main, though.
Yeah, same kind of, same desired effect. Has obviously, being able to clear things with all the same name could have a pretty significant upside.
I like that card a lot if you're thinking about, like, Whir, for example. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, Set Adrift can deal with maybe one bridge, depending on what the board state looks like, whereas Echoing Truth says, no, get them out. Get them all. I also like these one-of effects just in the builds with Pyromancer's Ascension because they just you're going to see them in the decks where you're going off, and I think they're important. So that one slot is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So,
and we also have humans showing up here in 5th place, spotted by
look at that
Liam Daly. The innovation that they've come up with to help their matchup a little bit. Is Anafenza, the foremost. Obviously, a pretty good card at dealing with things that go to the graveyard, and we also see that this deck might be getting a little bit better because of some of the competition that's getting a little bit better for it, namely Death Shadow.
Right.
And if you have, Grixis Death Shadow to feed off of a little bit, or even like 4-color Shadow to feed off of a little bit, then suddenly you don't have to play against as much Izzet Phoenix. Also, Izzet Phoenix isn't playing Gut Shot pretty much at all anymore. So if those are in low supply, then your Noble Hierarchs live a little bit longer, and you can actuate on your game plan. So I just think like the environment has shifted back to being a little bit more friendly towards humans, and humans is kind of one of those decks that I don't think it's ever like a absolutely like trash deck to bring to a modern tournament. You can always have a good time and like have a good tournament playing humans. And it's just one of those decks that you can just keep around, and it'll probably consistently get better and better as time goes on.
Yeah, I like that for sure with humans, just because there's new humans every set.
Yeah, they're not going to stop printing humans.
But like, to your point, I think like a deck like this is just like is so key on like curving out with playing with lords.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those decks that just can curve out like that, it doesn't really matter what the format's doing. As long as you're proactive, you have a chance to win games, and that's pretty true.
Yeah.
I say that, and you could say like, oh, but Merfolk doesn't do that. I think it's a different deck. The lords here are just better. Like they're permanent. Like Thalia's Attendant doesn't like the counters don't go away when it dies, so it's fairly important.
And it's just like you just have so many more versatile things you can do with the humans. You have something that interacts with their hand. You have something that blocks them from casting a spell. It's definitely a deck that all the cards do different things that just make my dudes big and unblockable.
And like you said, Reflector Mage being better this week than it was in other recent weeks. Because, man, Reflector Maging a Phoenix doesn't feel good because it probably just gets discarded and comes back anyways. But Reflector Maging, a Death Shadow or a Gurmag Angler, man, you're in business.
Right.
So that's pretty good. Speaking of 4-color Shadow, or Death Shadow Zoo, if you will, that's in 7th place.
Yeah, piloted by Alex Pistecki, an invitational winner. And definitely... exactly what you'd expect.
I mean,
4-color Death
Shadow.
Shadow.
Almost the exact list that I played at regionals. Really, really close. I think it was like one less brutality for one more Mandrills on my list, but I still really like this deck. I think it's pretty well positioned. You see a copy of this deck, and there's also a copy of Infect in the decks that just are attacking from this angle that have some robust threats and like want to push through. If you're just going to come down to a straight race with things like Amulet and stuff, then like give me Team of Battle Rage. I'll go about it. That sounds nice. So
and again, you can play with that new card.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that card. I know because I thought about it a fair amount. I mean.
I know, but just like I didn't even think about like Become Immense and just being able to cast it twice. And I'm like, that's amazing.
I think like even though like if your turn 1 is Thoughtseize and your turn 2 is that thing, and then you just get to attack and cast Thoughtseize, right? Like that's not a bad line for Modern. Like if you're trying to figure out if it's Modern playable, like it's not bad. I think like people have looked at it. I saw like one of the cards I think that Mythic Spoiler pulls up is like Prophetic Flame Speaker, which never saw a home.
No.
But the difference there being like you can craft your turn to know what you're getting, which is a huge difference. So it dying to Bolt and like Fatal Push is tough, but so do most of the creatures in this deck, honestly.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that even like Mutagenic Growth plays so well with it is at least interesting, and the fact that it has Trample is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, Trample being tacked on is first of all hilarious on a 1/3, but definitely it makes you look at it twice when you think about this deck specifically.
Right, I agree. So that's cool. And then we had Grixis Death Shadow in 8th place.
And I don't know. This is similar to
Sam Pardis.
Let's say Sam Pardis
playing the
list.
Jace Vryn's Prodigies, which I like, and again, no
Serum Visions,
which I think makes a lot of sense for the way this deck has moved.
Yep.
So
they did they were doing a stream, and they cut a bit of a stream to make a Channel Fireball video, and he played this list with Matt Nass and Andrew Beckstrom, and they were talking about some of the choices and everything like that. And he's like, Mishra's Bauble was really what he wanted to be doing, basically, instead of Serum Visions. So,
and it makes a lot of sense. It lets you make your decisions better, and just you're not committing the mana. The hands where your turn 1 play is Serum Visions in that deck versus anything else definitely feel worse. Even compared to like Thought Scour, because Thought Scour sets you up for a turn 2 Gurmag Angler, Serum Vision doesn't. So I don't blame those for those decisions. So I do like his build's a little bit different with the 4 copies of Leyline of the Void in the sideboard.
Mhm.
So that's an interesting way to go about it, and probably something you have to do, just because those Phoenix matchups are tough with this deck. So, but I like that. Anything else in the top? We had 32. Well, we had a lot more than that.
No, we had a ton. There is a list. It's 34th place.
Okay.
Steven Martin. So
Interesting. Does he play the banjo by chance?
no. He does play with Vanifar though. It's Bant
Oh.
Vanifar showing up here. This is a quarter calling Eldritch Evolution, Vanifar deck that obviously has all your favorites. We're playing Kiki Jiki to combo off that way. We're also playing a Village Bellringer. We're playing a Vizier of the Menagerie, if you remember that card from Amonkhet block. Just a ton of like fun cards here, and trying to combo off and doing a bunch of different cool stuff.
I appreciate him doing this because I had a bunch of Prime Sticker Vanifars that I opened, and
we need that card to climb.
They were getting cheaper by the dozen, so.
But yeah, this is trying to make Vanifar a pod deck, and it not having hasted, it definitely hurts it. But it shows you that you can put something together and really try and have a little bit of success.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think he's a bit of a wild, crazy guy for like trying out this list
for sure.
but,
for sure.
But I hope that next time he gets a chance to win instead of just being the father of the bride.
yeah, really get to do that. I don't know.
How do you think he got to this tournament? Did he take a plane,
a train,
or an automobile?
Maybe some combination of all three or two at the very least.
No, fair enough.
At least a plane.
I hope he tipped well. I hate to have to call him a jerk.
How long can you do this?
I've got to try and think here, because I know I know what his favorite song to listen to while he was warming up. It's Roxanne.
Oh.
See, because that's a police song, but it's also a movie he was in where he had a big nose.
Yeah, it's true.
How many more Steve Martin movies
do I
know?
You've already outpaced me. Steve Martin, it's like, man, I know a lot of his movies. I don't know any of his movies.
You know what? He was definitely in that really bad Looney Tunes movie with Brendan Fraser. I know he was in that.
Okay.
So I hope to see Mr. Martin back in action in later weeks. That's it. I'm done.
Congratulations. All right.
Don't sue us. That's all, folks.
Oh, no. We're going to get a cease and desist from the Looney Tunes company.
I feel like you were morbidly intrigued as to why I could just name so many Steve Martin
you know
movies.
what?
I don't know. He's been in a lot. Does that help?
I mean, yes. Shout out to John Benson for getting 54th place with it ad nauseum.
Love you, John.
But I don't have anything else. I honestly
there's Sultai Reclamation in 46th place.
Oh
my gosh, it's a mystical teachings deck.
Oh
Wilderness Reclamation. All right, hold on, stop the presses.
So LSV I think did a video about this deck. So if you want to see more of this deck in action, LSV did a video on it. It had kind of a pretty poor showing, but it's doing a lot of cool things.
So this is Mitchell Castaldini. So 4 Wilderness Reclamation, 2 Assassin's Trophy, 1 Blue Sun Zenith, 1 Consume the Meek, 4 Cryptics, 3 Fatal Push, 4 Growth Spiral, 2 Hieroglyphic Illumination, 1 Logic Knot, 3 Mystical Teachings, 1 Nexus, 1 Pulse Rasa, 3 Remand, 1 Surgical, 1 Search for Escanza, a Torrential Gearhulk, 2 Snapcaster Mages. That's a spicy meatball right there. So
it sure is.
Yeah.
This is a deck that also you kill your opponent with Creeping Tar Pit.
Yeah, or honestly, it's Creeping Tar Pit, or it's make them draw their deck.
Also true. Yep.
So
Blue Sun's need to target you. Enjoy all those lovely, lovely cards. But this shows you that Reclamation, while this deck didn't perform the best, making day 2 with it, still nothing to not be proud of. And also, we'll just Reclamation, busted Magic card.
Yeah, also true.
I honestly looking at this and looking at all of the different kinds of decks that were successful that day 2 that got their deck list published. There's a lot going on in Modern, and it's gonna get it's gonna get like messed up. Like, not messed up, but I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff that's gonna happen to Modern. We have War of the Spark happening, like that. The set we've talked about already in this podcast of it being pushed, so I can't imagine it not having some sort of ripple in the format. We have Modern Horizons that's obviously going to have a huge impact in the format, and then we have the Mulligan rule, which could potentially be changing and having some pretty significant impacts in the format. So like, it's kind of weird because I think the format is pretty good. Is it Phoenix? I know it was a pretty high percentage of the day two.
Won the Classic, 2 out of the top 8 in the Open.
So like we still are looking at that and seeing that being a potential issue, but you're always going to have a best deck, right?
Yeah, you are. They've got to make sure. Like again, the argument that we talked before about Phoenix as far as being a best deck is how it has warped the format in weird ways. I.e., multiple decks playing a lot of main deck graveyard hate, and it honestly not being enough. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about an Esper deck that's playing many Nihil spell bombs. All the Tron lists are playing 4 relics. You know what I mean? Like you've got multiple surgical extractions in the main. These are things that I don't know that you want, in a healthy format, if that makes sense. But it's still got time, and like I said, there's a way to fix it. Wink.
Yeah, when you take a look at the day 2 metagame breakdown, does it Phoenix had 14 lists. The next highest was 308 tie between humans, Amulet Titan, and Mono Green Tron at 5 apiece.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's when your top list has almost 3 times the amount of the next, highest, percentage list. That's obviously we don't know where that percentage was day 1, so we don't have the conversion rate. We just know what day 2 looks like.
Right. I think again the Mythic Championship will be pretty telling because I think without a doubt you're going to see that be the most played deck at the Mythic Championship. Professional players like these decks, blue cantrip decks, like they just do. So you'll see like either you'll see it just be very dominant with a lot of players on it, or you'll see some pros who came ready to really break it and punish it, and maybe you'll see the format shifts, which like is what we saw after Grixis Death Shadow's dominant run. We saw it push a little bit, and if not, like I said, pretty much right after we get Mythic with Modern Horizons. So, again, neither of us are really pushing for a ban or anything like that because that's not where we're at.
Yeah.
If there's a deck that's going to be the best deck and put a lot of numbers into it, I mean, I'm pretty fine with it being like the blue-red deck. Like, it's not a big deal, but I guess WotC in the past hasn't been happy with that. I don't know. Let me twin.
Let me twin. Yeah, it's tough. It is tough. Realistically, they talk about like it hurting diversity. That was their motivation for like banning twin, because every blue red deck was a twin deck, and I don't know how you escape that with blue and red. I don't know how you create diversity in a color combination that is just a bunch of good stuff, if that makes any sense.
I mean, again, it's a bunch of cantrips that are trying to get to the same sequence every single time. Like, that's just the nature of it.
Yeah, so how do you create diversity in a deck that's designed for consistency?
That is a good question, and it starts with letting more red enchantments see play in Modern.
And I think I think that's a really difficult thing to try to figure out.
It is. And like I think honestly most of the time they're probably happier when those decks aren't seeing play at all versus dominance, because again, like it is pretty effective. I think you see a similar argument to like Commander players who get frustrated with the amount of like good tutors in the format, because you're talking about a 100-card format where they play out the same every single time. So I think that's true in these decks too, because you see the same cards every single time, and that's good and bad.
Yeah, I think they can fix it. I think they have to figure out a way to create a new tempo deck, like in the format. They have to figure out a way to create a Delver deck of some persuasion, even if it's just like fake diversity, right? Like even if to be fair, if you take a look at something like Legacy, like you still have a bunch of Delver decks, but they're still like people could be.
But that's those decks exist for honestly two major reasons, and
Mhm.
exist and function the way they do for two reasons. They exist because of Brainstorm, which allows them to set up those Delvers and plan those turns, and two, they exist because of Wasteland. And you're not getting either of
I
those cards in
know.
Modern Horizons. I
I
gotta tell you,
know.
if you were playing, if you have those ones on your board, like I take them off because you're not getting them.
That's tough. Because like I just kept thinking about like, well, what other things do like blue and red do? And it's just like they're just efficient burn spells and cantrips.
Yeah, sometimes they copy things, but
Yeah.
spells, creatures, whatever it may be, lots of them ad infinitum. But I bury in the lead here. I don't really remember what.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a fair question, and I think like logically, at least how they're constructed now, that leads you to faithless looting because it's the biggest, it's the biggest red flag as far as that consistency thing because you get to see the most cards. Plus, it helps dump into the graveyard. But it's just frustrating because I also think that Arclight Phoenix is an exciting like thing to build around, and like if you take away, faithless looting, then you really do take away its ability to function. You just do. So
yeah,
like I said,
like in that deck, there really isn't a thing that you can replace it with. Like Dredge can still survive as being less powerful.
It probably could. I think there is at least an interesting idea in the fact of maybe you decide you're going to ban faithless looting, so you put careful study in Modern Horizons. That would be interesting, I think, to me. Because then you force those Phoenix decks to have to commit to blue, so you keep them in blue red, and you don't get the flashback element. So maybe that's it, but I don't know if that's enough to do it, but it certainly helps.
Mm-hmm.
So, you want to talk quickly about the standard classic?
Sure. But I just wanted to look at it because this is sort of our last big sort of standard thing before we get War of the Spark, and just want to see if we can get an idea of what the format really looks like. I don't think I wouldn't expect anything to be shaken up too much. In all honesty, we see it being won by Zachary Keene playing Celestia Tokens, so
Yeah.
kind of a nice bookend here, and defeating Daniel Sintahir playing Mono Red Aggro. But we have things like Civic Nexus, Sultai Midrange, Esper Control, and Teamer Control, piloted by Yusuf Bridges. So
Hey,
shout out to Yusuf. Really,
That's just the. By the way, that's just the
Teamer Reclamation.
Yeah,
right?
it's reclamation.
Yeah,
So.
it plays like a control deck, to be perfectly
It
honest.
does, it
You're
does.
not trying to combo anyone out or anything like that. So, but it really does seem like if you replace like Celestia Tokens with like Azorius Aggro, you probably have a more accurate representation of what the format really ended up being.
Azorius Aggro's in 9th place, but
Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't make the top 8, but
that makes sense. You have 2 Chain Ruler decks in the top 8. So.
Yeah. So what do you taking a look at where everything kind of landed with standard and everything? How well has standard in the current Ravnica setting felt to you? I personally haven't played a lot of paper standard. I've played a lot of arena standard, I think it was to start things off. I think it was successful.
I think it was successful too. Again, pretty much every, and again, if you dip into arena as well, every guild got some deck representation at some point throughout, this Ravnican cycle.
Yeah.
There's a Dimir deck that's pretty popular right now that Brad Nelson's been playing. That's on arena. So I think for that it's been good. I do think that like some cards have been pretty dominant. To the point of, I'm glad that there's a new set. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Teferi is Teferi, and it is frustrating.
Yeah.
The play patterns of Teferi at times is just Teferi is just good, just is. And I think that like the more and more that people play and see like Wilderness Reclamation, like that card just messed up. Like,
yeah, it does. It definitely with the other effects that currently exist within standard, it definitely is broken. No, it definitely is powerful. It's probably above the power level that you can consistently feel comfortable with the entire time that's going to be within standard.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And you're going to keep it with things like Expansion Explosion, with Niv Mizzet. Not Nexus for the whole time, which is nice, but it does seem like the kind of card where like I think you've got to evaluate. Like like Wilderness Reclamation is the kind of card you have to evaluate every single card in every next set while it's standard legal, just to make sure
Yeah.
that something isn't just entirely
Yeah,
bonkers.
you have to take a look at all your instants.
Yeah.
And be like, is this busted with Reclamation?
Right.
And when you take a look at some of the stuff that this is going to be, so we didn't talk about the new Vivian. So the new Vivian Reed is a 3-mana planeswalker that's static ability is you can play creatures that flash. Like all your creatures that flash.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying like people are like, oh, I'm going to put this in my Wilderness Reclamation deck, but that's a powerful effect. And then suddenly, like it bleeds. I'm not like that is far beyond. Like that is
then
that is
you
a
have to
fairly
play like a bunch of non creature permanents, and your creatures have flash deck, which is a little awkward. But I get what you're saying.
But yeah, you start to figure out or. What about Safari? Now you have to look at all your sorceries and your instants.
Yeah, that is possibly troubling. With banned, and again, it's not like Reclamation has been done obscenely well, but I think play patterns with it are. I don't know. I find it to be obnoxious. I just do.
And I think like this is where we don't have the full information of what we have more of the Spark. They could print a pretty good like modal. We already have Mortify.
Mortify, yeah.
And they could print like another decently enough modal spell that could kill, something effective or have another effect. And it'd still be something you can feel comfortable playing main deck in certain archetypes and be fine. So there could be the other stuff that we haven't seen that will help us combat what's going on. But
I agree with that. I feel like the format feels defined by its haymakers. Sultai playing. I'm going to forget the name of the super blue green.
Hydroid Crassus.
With Crassus, Nexus with Reclamation, and everything else. Esper with Teferi. Like it just feels like, and there's a lot of games in Standard that come down to those cards. They just come down to those cards, which for a format that has felt diverse, there are times where it's just like, and granted that could just be both of us playing a lot more Arena, but it's just like, oh, okay, like the way I play in Arena now, especially with like Teferi, is just like, oh, okay, I don't have an answer here, I'm done. Like I'm not, oh, okay, cool, you're going off, I'm done. I'm not gonna sit there and watch. I might get another turn, but I don't care. You know what I mean? That's just how it is. So, I think it's been a good and diverse format. But I'm excited to see something else come in and see what happens with it, to see if some of these cards can get knocked a little bit or get a little bit of competition with them. So,
yeah, I agree with that. So that's going to be the end of our lovely show this week. And then we have coming up on this weekend is that Cube Cup. Which unfortunately Mike will not be in attendance of.
Yeah, like I said, work makes it tough to do weekends right now.
We if you can remember way back when Dave was part of the show and was a host, he obviously had a peasant cube that we were all pretty big fans of, and would have something called the Cube Invitational. Well, we're actually getting 2 events this year, so we have the Cube Invitational still, but we're also going to have the Columbus Cube Cup. So this is a sort of an event for pretty much anyone to really attend. It's not something that's like what the invitational is truly going to be as invitational, and it's going to be fun. We get to draft a bunch of times and hopefully take home a sweet trophy that was made that I still have to pay partially for.
Because I paid for it and I'm going.
I haven't done so yet. I literally have to send. Dave sent me $9 for something. I'm gonna have to send him $10 back. But I'm pretty excited for it. I really enjoy drafting Dave's cube, even though I've been notoriously bad at it for many years. But I don't care. And it'll be a fun time to have on this weekend. So. But yeah, that's gonna be everything for the show this week. If you want to reach out to us, you can. You can tweet at us. Our handle is YourEndStep, and
tweet us up. I like that. Tweet us up.
When you reach out to us, it's at YourEndStep. We also have an email address at YourEndStep@gmail.com or Facebook.com/@YourEndStep. If you're listening to us via one of your podcast feeders, you can leave a rating or a review. Please do so. We truly appreciate it. And if you're listening to us on Legit MTG, thank you so much for checking out the show. Check out some of the other articles they have on there, and be sure to shop around in that store they got. And if you're shopping locally in Columbus, definitely check out Comic Town. You can find out more information about them by visiting Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook. And of course, like we said at the top of the show, we do have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/outyourinstant. Please do take a look at it, and if you want to become a patron, we certainly would appreciate it. We have been kind of organizing to get some pretty cool things to potentially give away exclusively to our patrons. I want to keep teasing this. Apparently, Mike's gonna make a bunch of noise with his phone so rudely, but
Sorry.
we're working on getting some things to potentially look at as a way to expand the show and get some product reviews potentially, and give our opinions on some hardware that you'd be using in a tournament setting, and hopefully with that give away some stuff as well.
Yeah, we're getting some like altar sleeves. I know is being sent our way. So
you haven't checked those out. I know that they have a Kickstarter either going or
it's
just
going on like right now. Yes.
And it's a really cool concept of having an inner sleeve, like a perfect fit, that is pre-altered for certain kinds of card arts and everything like that. So instead of having to potentially have a situation where you have a card that is altered and a head judge has deemed it not being able to be played, you could have a card that's altered with a sleeve, and then if it comes down that they want you to not have that, you would just unsleeve it.
Yeah, and the best part is they're partnering with a bunch of artists
Correct.
to increase their library. So it's not like they're taking that money away from the artists. Like the artists
Correct.
can submit their designs, and then the artists can like make more money off their altar, which I think is a cool idea. So it was pretty neat. And they sent us. I think we're getting a soul ring to look at, Goif, and a couple tokens. So I'm pretty excited. Hopefully, it'll be here soon.
Yeah, it's such a novel concept. I mean, we all have like these perfect fits on our cards, and people definitely have obviously foiled out decks and stuff like that, and really want that touch of customization to what they're playing, but don't necessarily want to take these cards and alter them with the way that some people have, because they are still in a competitive setting and don't want to run the risk of having this very expensive card that you've invested a lot of money into not be playable anymore. And it's great that they're still working with the artists to make sure they're not taking money away from them, because some of the altruists out there are so very, very skilled, and if it's a way that we can have more of their skill represented in the game we all play, I think that's a pretty cool idea. So this means that we're going to have potentially some more of a video aspect to our program, but I think I want to isolate it exclusively to Twitter. I think I want to do Twitter videos, because I think that's where our strongest following is. So expect to see some of that stuff pop up on our Twitter, and yeah, but this is stuff that's going to be happening here in the future, and we're trying. We want to make more of a well-rounded product here for you folks, and expand what we're here for and what we do. So stay tuned for that. But that's going to be all for us this week, and we will catch you next time. You have a great one.